Look across the whole landscape of Christianity today. The millions who attend, the millions who believe, the millions who sing and pray and call themselves by the name of Christ. And then ask yourself a question that will haunt you once you have seen it. Why do so few of them burn? Why, out of all the multitudes who have the same Bible, the same Christ, the same Spirit available to them, do only a rare handful ever blaze with the unmistakable fire of God, while the vast majority live and die, as cold as the day they were converted? It cannot be that God plays favorites, handing fire to a chosen few and withholding it from the rest by mere whim. It cannot be that the fire is unavailable, for the Scripture promises it to all. And yet the evidence is undeniable. The holy fire of God falls on so few. In every generation there are the rare ones who burn, and the vast, comfortable multitude who do not, and the gap between them is not an accident. There is a reason the fire falls on so few, a reason that is being hidden from you by a comfortable Christianity that does not want you to know it, because if you knew it, you would have to choose, and the choosing would cost you everything you have been unwilling to give. Tonight that reason is going to be brought into the light, and by the end, you will know which group you are in, the few who burn, or the many who only wish they did, and exactly what separates them. But before we go any deeper, I want to find out who is out there, because I believe that scattered across this cold and comfortable generation, there is a remnant, men and women who are no longer content to be among the many who do not burn, who would give anything to be among the few who do, who ache for the holy fire whatever it costs. And I want to see you. So right now, before you go 1 second further, comment where you are watching from, your city, your country. Type it in the comments below. Let the remnant make itself known, so that across this dying world we can see that there are still those who refuse to live and die cold. And before the preacher begins, just one word from us, the ones who make these messages. If as you listen, you find yourself longing to be among the few who burn, but realizing you have never had the depth of secret communion with God that the fire requires, no real discipline of prayer, no daily place where you seek His face, then know we built something to help, and it is here if you want it. It is called the War Room Manual, a 30-day plan to help you build the daily discipline of seeking God in the secret place where the fire is found. It does not replace your Bible. Nothing ever could. The Word is the foundation and the final authority, and it is there the fire is kindled. The manual is simply a tool to help you build the habit, if you want it. The link is in the description, with no pressure at all. And now still your heart and let the preacher show you what separates the few who burn from the many who do not.
I want to speak to you about a holy fire, and about the strange and sorrowful fact that this fire which is offered to all falls in reality upon so very few. I have lived long enough and watched closely enough to know that this is true. In every age, in every church, among all the multitudes who profess the name of Christ, there are always the few who burn. You know them when you meet them, for there is about them a warmth, an intensity, a sense of the presence of God that cannot be manufactured and cannot be hidden. And there are the many, the vast, comfortable many, who have everything the few have, except the one thing that matters, who hold the same doctrines and read the same book and sit in the same pews, and yet are cold. And the question that ought to trouble every one of us is this: which am I? Am I among the few who burn, or the many who do not? And if I am among the many, why, and can it be changed? Let me say at once what the reason is not, for we must clear away the false explanations that comfort the cold. It is not that the few are more gifted than the many. The fire of God has fallen on the simple and the unlearned as readily as on the brilliant, and many a gifted man has lived and died cold, while some obscure and untalented saint burned with the very fire of heaven. It is not that the few were chosen and the many passed over by some arbitrary decree, for God is no respecter of persons, and the fire is offered freely to all who will meet its conditions. It is not that the fire is scarce, as though there were not enough to go around. For the fire of God is infinite, and he pours it without measure on all who are prepared to receive it. No. The reason the fire falls on so few is not in the scarcity of the fire, nor in the favoritism of God. It is in the fewness of those willing to pay what the fire costs. The fire is available to all, and falls on few, because few will pay the price, and the many who want the fire do not want it enough to give what it requires. For there is a price, and this is the truth the comfortable church has hidden, because the naming of it would empty the comfortable pews. The holy fire of God does not fall on the casual, the divided, the half-hearted, the comfortable. It falls on the wholly surrendered, the desperate, the consumed with longing, the men and women who have made the knowing of God the single passion of their lives and have laid everything else on the altar to obtain it. The few who burn are not a different species from the many who do not. They are simply the ones who wanted God more than they wanted comfort, who sought him with a violence and a desperation the many have never been willing to feel, who paid in the currency of time and surrender and hunger what the many have refused to pay. The fire falls on the few because only the few have prepared the altar upon which it can fall. The many want the fire to fall on an unprepared life, on a divided heart, on a comfortable and unsurrendered soul. And it will not, it cannot, for the fire falls only on the altar of a life wholly given. Consider the matter of hunger, for here is perhaps the deepest reason of all. The few who burn are the few who hungered. There is a kind of holy desperation, a spiritual hunger and thirst so intense that it will not be satisfied with anything less than God himself, and it is upon the hungry that the fire falls. Blessed are they, the Lord said, who hunger and thirst, for they shall be filled. The filling is promised to the hungry and to the hungry alone. And the tragedy of the many is that they are not hungry. They are comfortable. They have just enough of God to be satisfied, just enough religion to feel secure, just enough spiritual experience to dull the ache that would otherwise have driven them to seek him with their whole heart. They are not starving for God. They are comfortably fed on the world with God as a pleasant supplement, and the comfortably fed do not seek, do not hunger, do not press in. And so the fire which falls only on the hungry passes them by. The greatest barrier to the fire is not gross sin. It is comfortable satisfaction, the deadly contentment of a soul that has enough of God to be respectable and not enough to burn. And I must tell you that this satisfaction is itself the judgment, for God often gives a man exactly as much of himself as the man truly wants. The man who wants only enough religion to ease his conscience receives only enough to ease his conscience, and no more. The man who wants God himself, who hungers and thirsts and will not be denied, receives God himself, the fire and the fullness. We have, each of us, almost exactly as much of God as we genuinely desire. Not as much as we say we desire, for we all say we want more, but as much as we actually want, as proven by what we are willing to seek and sacrifice for. The few burn because they truly wanted to burn, wanted it more than ease, more than approval, more than the 1,000 lesser things the many prefer. And the many remain cold, because beneath all their wishing, they do not truly want the fire enough to pay for it. If you would know how much you want God, do not ask your words, ask your life. Ask how much you seek him. The answer is the measure of your true desire, and your true desire is the measure of how much of him you will receive. Let me press the matter of seeking, for the few who burn are always the few who sought. The fire does not fall on the passive. It does not descend on the man who waits comfortably for it to overtake him, while he gives no diligence to seek the face of God. The promise is to those who seek, ye shall seek me and find me, when ye shall search for me with all your heart. With all the heart, there is the condition the many will not meet. The many seek God with a fragment of the heart, in the leftover moments, with a divided and distracted attention. And finding that this casual seeking yields no fire, they conclude the fire is not for them. but they have never sought him with all the heart, never gone hard after God in the secret place with the focused desperation that finds him. The few have. The few have shut the door and sought his face through dryness and silence and apparent absence, refusing to quit, pressing in until the seeking broke through into finding. The fire falls on the few because only the few truly sought, and the secret of the burning life has never been a secret at all. It is simply that the few sought God with all their heart, and the many did not. I want to speak of the secret place, for it is there that the fire is kindled, and the neglect of it is why the many stay cold. The fire of God is not kindled in the crowd. It is not caught in the great meeting, however stirring. It is kindled in secret, alone with God, in the long and hidden hours of seeking that no one sees and the comfortable will not give. The few who burn are, without exception, men and women of the secret place. They have a hidden life with God that is the source of the visible fire, and the visible fire is only the overflow of what was kindled in secret. This is why you cannot get the fire second-hand, cannot catch it from another's flame, cannot import it from a conference or a book or a borrowed experience. It must be kindled in your own secret place, on your own altar, in your own hidden seeking, or it will not be yours at all. And here is the great divide between the few and the many laid bare. The many have a public religion and an empty secret place, while the few have a secret place ablaze, out of which the public fire flows. The state of your secret place is the state of your fire. Show me a cold believer, and I will show you a neglected secret place. Show me one who burns, and I will show you one who has met God, again and again, where no one could see. Look at the upper room, for it shows us the pattern of the fire with perfect clarity. The fire of Pentecost did not fall on a careless crowd. It fell on a company who had tarried 10 days in one accord, waiting, seeking, praying, refusing to leave until the promise came. They had been told to wait, and they waited, through the first day when nothing happened, and the second and the third, on through 10 days of seeking before the fire fell. And I'm persuaded that the 10 days were not arbitrary. They were the preparation, the seeking, the emptying and the readying of the vessels upon which the fire would fall. Now consider how the modern believer would have fared in that upper room. He would have waited an hour, perhaps an afternoon, and finding that the fire had not yet come, he would have concluded that it was not for him and gone home cold. The fire fell on the few who would tarry, and it passes by the many who will not. We want a Pentecost without a tarrying, a fire without a waiting, a fullness without the seeking that prepares for it. And there is no such thing. The fire fell on those who tarried, and it falls still on those who will seek and wait and not give up. And it passes by the many who want the fire of the upper room without the 10 days of seeking that preceded it. And look at Carmel, where the fire fell in answer to a prepared altar and a praying prophet. Elijah did not stand idly and wait for fire to fall from a clear sky. He repaired the broken altar, he laid the sacrifice in order, he drenched it and prepared it, and then he prayed, and the fire fell and consumed it all. The fire answered the prepared altar and the praying man. And on that same mountain, do you remember, were the prophets of Baal, who wanted fire as desperately as anyone ever wanted it, who cried out from morning to noon, who cut themselves and raved and gave everything they had. And no fire came, because zeal without a true altar and a true God avails nothing. There is a sobering picture, men who wanted the fire with frantic intensity and never received it, because they sought it wrongly, on an altar the true God would not honor. It is possible to want the fire and never receive it if you will not prepare the altar God requires and seek him on his terms. The fire falls on the few who prepare rightly and seek truly, not merely on the many who want intensely. Now I must confront the comfortable directly, for comfort is the great enemy of the fire, and ours is the most comfortable generation of Christians who ever lived. We have arranged a Christianity that asks nothing, costs nothing, and disturbs nothing, a religion perfectly designed to leave us comfortable. And we wonder why we do not burn. But the fire and comfort cannot coexist. The fire falls on the desperate, and comfort kills desperation. The fire falls on the hungry, and comfort feeds the hunger with substitutes. The fire falls on the seeking, and comfort removes the ache that drives the seeking. Our very ease is the thing keeping us cold. We have made ourselves too comfortable to burn, and if we would have the fire, we must be willing to forsake the comfort, to let God make us desperate, to refuse the substitutes that have been dulling our hunger, to become the kind of people who seek Him as though their lives depended on it. For in the truest sense they do. The comfortable will not burn. It is only the wholly violent, the ones who take the kingdom by force, the ones who will not be comfortable while they are cold, upon whom the fire falls. I must tell you something about the nature of this fire that explains why the many shrink from it, even as they claim to want it. For the fire of God is not only warmth and glory, it is also a consuming flame. And what it consumes is everything in us that is not holy. Our God is a consuming fire, the Scripture says, and when His fire falls in earnest, it does not merely comfort, it burns, it purifies, it consumes the dross, it lays its hot hand on the sin and the self and the idols we have cherished, and reduces them to ash. And here, I am persuaded, is a hidden reason the fire falls on so few. The many do not truly want it, because in their hearts they know that the real fire would consume things they are not willing to give up. They want the warmth of the fire without its burning, the comfort of the presence without the purifying of the holiness, the glow without the consuming. But you cannot have one without the other. The same fire that warms also burns, and the man who calls down the holy fire of God is asking God to consume everything in him that is unlike Christ. The few who burn are the few who were willing to be purified, who said in effect, burn whatever must be burned, consume whatever must be consumed, only let the fire fall. And the many hold back because they sense rightly that the fire would cost them their idols, and they would rather keep the idols and stay cold than lose them and burn. So you must settle, before you ever seek the fire in earnest, whether you are willing to be purified by it, for the fire will not negotiate. It will not fall and politely leave your cherished sins untouched. When it comes in power, it comes to make you holy, and the man who is not willing for the holiness will never receive the power, for God will not pour out His holy fire to merely decorate an unholy life. This is the searching question beneath all the others. Not merely do you want the fire, everyone wants the warmth and the power and the sense of God, but are you willing to be consumed, to have the flame fall on your idols and your self-will and your secret compromises and burn them all away? The few who burn answered yes. They wanted God and His holiness more than they wanted the things the fire would consume, and so they could pray for the fire honestly, holding nothing back from the flame. Settle that question, and you have removed the deepest barrier between you and the fire that falls on so few. Let me show you the few who burned, that you may see the pattern. There has never been a saint who blazed with the fire of God who did not pay for it in the secret place. Behind every public fire there were the hidden hours. The men whose lives we read of with longing, who shook their generations, who carried the unmistakable presence of God. Every one of them was a man of desperate, hungry, secret seeking, who sought God with all his heart and paid the price the comfortable would not pay. They were not given the fire as a gift, they did nothing to receive. They sought it, hungered for it, prepared the altar, and the fire fell. And this is at once the most sobering and the most hopeful truth in all of this. Sobering, because it means the cold have only themselves to blame, for the fire was available and they would not pay. Hopeful, because it means the fire is not reserved for an elite, but available to any soul, however ordinary, who will become hungry enough, desperate enough, surrendered enough to seek God with all the heart. The few are not a closed circle. Any one of the many may join them the moment they are willing to pay what the few have paid. And I must warn you against a misunderstanding that has left many who once burned now cold, which is the notion that the fire is received once and kept automatically. It is not so. The fire must be tended, or it will go out. Even the altar in the temple of old required that the priest lay fresh wood upon it every morning, that the fire might never die. The fire shall ever be burning upon the altar, God commanded. It shall never go out. But it would go out, plainly, if it were not daily fed. And so it is with the fire of God in a human soul. There are those who genuinely received the fire, who burned for a season with a real and holy flame, and who are cold today because they ceased to tend it. They stopped seeking. They let the secret place fall into neglect. They assumed that what God had kindled would burn on without their daily diligence, and the fire, unfed, slowly died, until they became what they are now. Men who can speak of a fire they once had, warming themselves at the memory of a flame long extinguished. Do not presume upon the fire. If God in his mercy kindles it in you, understand that you must tend it daily, feeding it in the secret place morning by morning, guarding it from the winds of distraction and the rains of neglect, for the fire that is not fed goes out, however brightly it once burned. The few who burn over a lifetime are the few who tended the flame faithfully across the years, and many who flared brightly for a season are cold today because they did not. Let me draw together what marks the few, that you may see plainly what you must become. The few who burn are the hungry. They were never satisfied with a little of God, but ached for him with a holy desperation. The few who burn are the seekers. They sought him with all their heart, in the secret place, through dryness and silence, refusing to quit. The few who burn are the surrendered. They laid everything on the altar, holding nothing back, willing to be purified by the very fire they sought. The few who burn are the tenders of the flame. They fed the fire daily and did not let it die. And the few who burn are, above all, the ones who wanted God more than they wanted anything else, more than comfort, more than approval, more than the lesser loves the many prefer. That is the whole portrait. Not gifted, not elite, not specially favored, but hungry, seeking, surrendered, faithful, and consumed with desire for God himself. And every mark of that portrait is a choice, available to you the moment you are willing. The fire falls on so few, not because the door is narrow by God's decree, but because so few will walk through the door that stands wide open before them all. I want to press upon you the cost plainly, for the comfortable church will not. To be among the few who burn will cost you your comfort, for you cannot be comfortable and desperate at the same time. It will cost you your time, for the secret place where the fire is kindled demands the hours the many spend on lesser things. It will cost you the substitutes, the lesser loves and pleasures and distractions that have been dulling your hunger. For as long as you are filled with these, you will never be hungry enough for God. It will cost you your divided heart, for the fire falls on the wholly surrendered and not on the man who keeps a chamber back for himself. And above all, it will cost you the right to remain as you are, for you cannot become one of the few who burn while remaining one of the comfortable many. The very transition requires a death, a forsaking, a leaving of the comfortable multitude to walk the lonelier road of the desperate few. This is the price. It is why so few pay it. And it is why so few burn. But hear me, for I would not crush you with the cost without showing you the worth. The few who paid the price never regretted it. Not one of them, in all the history of the burning saints, ever looked back and wished he had kept the comfort he forsook to gain the fire. For what is gained is beyond all comparison with what is given. You lay down a comfort that was keeping you cold, and you receive the living fire of God. You forsake the substitutes that were dulling your hunger, and you receive the satisfying fullness of God himself. You give up the right to remain as you are, and you become a new thing, a burning thing, a soul ablaze with the presence of the living God. The cost is real, but set beside what is gained, it is nothing, less than nothing. It is the trading of ashes for fire, of comfort for glory, of a cold and respectable religion for the burning reality of God himself. The few who burn are the only truly satisfied souls on earth, for they alone have what every human heart was made for, and only the fire can give. And consider that the burning of the few is not for themselves alone, for a soul on fire warms everyone it touches. And this is why the coldness of the church is so great a tragedy, and the burning of even a few so great a hope. One man truly ablaze with the fire of God does more to advance the kingdom than 1,000 cold professors, for the fire is contagious where mere religion is not. The world is unmoved by our arguments and untouched by our programs, but it cannot ignore a man who burns. There is something in a soul on fire with God that arrests even the careless and the hostile, a warmth and a reality that no cold orthodoxy can produce. Every awakening in the history of the church was kindled by a few who burned, whose fire spread to others until whole regions were ablaze. The many who are cold cannot set anyone alight, for you cannot give what you do not have, but the few who burn become the kindling of revival, the points of light from which the fire spreads. So when you seek to be among the few who burn, you are not seeking a private blessing only. You are seeking to become one through whom the fire might spread to a cold and dying world. The church does not need more cold professors. It has multitudes. It needs the few who burn, and it has always been the few who burned who changed the world, while the comfortable many looked on and wondered how they did it. This, then, is the stewardship laid upon any who would receive the fire. It was never meant to be hoarded but spread, never to terminate on yourself but to overflow to others. The fire that God gives the few, he gives for the sake of the many, that through the burning few, the cold many might be set ablaze. And perhaps this is part of why he grieves over the coldness of his church. For every believer who refuses the fire is not only forfeiting his own blessing, but withholding from the world the warmth he was meant to carry to it. You were meant to burn, not only for your own sake, but for the sake of every cold soul your fire might have warmed. Do not rob them of it. Become one of the few who burn, and let the fire spread through you to the many who sit in darkness and cold. So I bring you to the question this whole message has been driving toward, and only you can answer it. Which will you be? One of the few who burn, or one of the many who only wish they did? The choice is not made by wishing. The many all wish. It is made by paying. Will you pay what the few have paid? Will you let God make you desperate, become hungry enough to seek him with all your heart, forsake the comfort that has kept you cold, give up the substitutes that have dulled your hunger, surrender the divided heart, and go into the secret place and seek the face of God until the fire falls? Because the fire is available to you this very night, on the same terms it has always been available, not to the gifted, not to the chosen elite, but to the hungry. The desperate, the seeking, the surrendered. The fire falls on so few only because so few will pay, and the question is whether you will be one of them. And I would urge you not to delay the decision, for the road that leads to the burning few and the road that leads to the comfortable many are in truth the same road for only a little while, and then they part. And every day you remain comfortable, you walk further down the road of the many and make the crossing to the few harder than it was the day before. Comfort is not a neutral resting place. It is a current, and it carries you steadily away from the fire while you imagine you are standing still. The longer a soul remains among the comfortable cold, the more its hunger dulls, the more its capacity for desperation atrophies, the more natural the coldness comes to feel, until at last the man cannot even remember wanting the fire, and the wishing itself dies. The time to cross over to the few is always now, while the hunger is awake and the longing is real, while you can still feel the ache that the comfortable eventually lose. Do not say you will seek the fire in some better season, for the comfortable season never improves. It only deepens its hold. The few who burn are those who, at some definite moment, refused to drift any longer with the comfortable many, and turned, deliberately and at cost, to seek God with all their heart. Let this be that moment for you. Do not let this be one more message that warms you for an hour and leaves you as cold as it found you. That is the very danger I have been describing, to feel a longing for the fire under the preaching, and to mistake the longing for the fire itself, and to go away comfortable having felt something, and having paid nothing, and having changed nothing. The many have done exactly that 1,000 times. They are moved by every message about the fire and never once pay the price to receive it, and the repeated moving without paying only hardens them until they can hear of the fire and feel nothing at all. Do not join them in that. Let the longing you feel right now drive you not to another comfortable feeling, but to the secret place, this very night, to begin to pay the price that the few have always paid. So go into the secret place, and do not go as the comfortable many, expecting the fire to fall on an unprepared and divided life. Go as one determined to join the few. Become desperate. Let God strip away the comfort and the substitutes that have dulled your hunger, and seek Him with all your heart, through the dryness and the silence, refusing to quit, pressing in until the fire falls on the altar you have prepared. And seek Him not for one night only, but day after day, building the hidden life of the secret place out of which the fire flows. For the few who burn are the few who sought, and the fire has always fallen, in every generation, on those and only those who wanted God enough to pay for Him. You have wished for the fire long enough. It is time to pay for it. Go into the secret place, and do not come out among the cold and comfortable many. Come out one of the burning few. In Jesus' name, seek the fire until it falls, and do not rest among the many while the fire is offered to the few. For the God who answered by fire in ages past has not changed, and the same flame that fell on the prophets and the apostles and the burning saints of every generation is offered still to any soul desperate enough to seek it. He is not looking for the gifted or the great. He is looking, as He has always looked, for the hungry, for the ones who want Him more than they want their comfort, for the few who will pay the price the many refuse. Be one of them. The fire is ready. The only question that remains is whether you are.